I need to get energy. Okay, so I know these glasses are fake, but I feel very ugly today. Alright guys, hello, welcome back, how are ya? I missed ya. So today I'm going to talk about Riverdale. I haven't diligently read every single copy of Archie and Friends, but I did like them a lot as a kid. I liked Betty and Veronica's, and I read Life with Archie and I really liked it a lot. Today I popped by my little library and I found this, Afterlife with Archie. It's so good. I recommend it so badly. Like, it's just, even like the art, it's so beautiful. Like, look at this. That's gorgeous. And so I was reading it and I was like, thinking about a good old show called Riverdale. I was very excited for when Riverdale came out because I was a longtime fan of the Archie comics, as I said. So when it came out, I watched it and I sat there and I was like, that sucked. And it made me like disappointed because, you know, I felt like it was disappointing me. It was this thing that I've loved for so long and they just scrapped together this dumb teen drama. Sorry, the lighting is... with these characters that a lot of people love just for a cash grab. And the director of the show has literally said before that he didn't like the Archie comics that much. Then why'd you pick the Archie comics for your adaptation? You could have just made this a bunch of basic teenagers and we wouldn't be having this video. I'm not going to get too much as to why I don't like Riverdale, because there's a million videos out there and I agree with pretty much all of their points. Thinking after I read Afterlife with Archie, and I loved it, I was just thinking to myself, if I directed Riverdale, what would I have done differently? Here's today's video. So let's start with the setting of everything. Now, I would have still kept the same plotline of murder in a small town, because that is like my favorite plotline of TV. It's, like, think about it. It's the easiest, foolproof plan for any TV show. It's a contained story. We know that the events are only going to happen in this town. This is such a rare occurrence that this one thing causes a stir in the whole town, so everyone is affected. It brings out the true monsters, so we can't trust everyone we see, making suspicion and tension between characters. And usually it's set in beautiful places, like in Twin Peaks or Broadchurch, so you get beautiful scenic views. So I would have still kept it the same, and I would have still kept it with Jason as the one who dies, because Jason is like really creepy. Just a character that's not really relevant to the story at all. Cheryl's the one that's more important. I would have kept a lot more of the drama high school oriented, because I feel like they tried to do that at the beginning of the show, but I'm not really sure what happened. But at this point in the show, nothing is set in the school anymore. Like, we have the lounge, but like that's it. Everything else is set in like the Hiram penthouse and like the Cooper residence, and it's so just like, I don't care. I don't care about these parents. Like, I don't care if like Veronica's dad's like a mobster or like Alice Cooper's like possibly a psychopath. Like, I don't care. I want the kids, because that's what I signed up for. So I would have said it much more of a high school oriented story, because that's where the story is. I like how they do very prototypical like 1950s kind of things. Often like the diner is obviously in itself like very 50s, but like neon, because it's like modern. I like the diner. I like the chocolate shop. I think it's cute. I like how their school dances kind of like look like little like what are they called? Like 50s high school dances. But then they just don't. You know, like, I don't understand why they don't play into that more sometimes. Like, for example, in one of the most recent episodes, they went up to the lodge, the Lodge. It was just like a modern-ish, like antique-y old house. And I was like, you could have made this like she remembered it as a kid as like this big palace, but then she goes there and it's like this like little house, and it's like I don't know, and they have like this neighbor that's like has an accent. It's like, hi neighbors, and they're like, but I like the 50s-ness, but I wish they didn't stop all the time. Because that would have added a level of creepiness to the show and like surrealism if it's like, you know, it's a bunch of kids in the 21st century, but they are, you know, in a very 50s setting. I'd like that a lot. Next, we're going to talk about characters. Buckle down, because this one's going to take a while. Now, I think the main fault of the show is that they have completely forgotten the characters. Now, I'm not sure why, because they have been given already such strong characters that have held up on their own for so many years, but they completely discarded that just to, like, make Jughead emo. So I would much more stay close to the Archie comics characters, but bring them into the 21st century. First with Archie. Now, Archie, he is the lovable goofball who is always causing a problem. He's always the one that is getting the group into situations, but he's the first one to step up to the plate and get them out of it. He is like the the typical teenage boy stereotype, like the Spider-Man character. I would love if he was a lot goofier, and I feel like the actor they picked for him, he's just so big that it doesn't feel like Archie, it just feels like a very big Australian guy that they put red hair on. But that's what they did. Use the example of Murder House for all of these. I don't know. He would be the one that would go straight into the murder house first, no questions, if he knew that someone that he needed to save was in that house. Next we have Betty, who is my favorite. Betty is the typical girl next door. She, you know, is a little bit of a tomboy. She likes cars, and she also really likes her neighbor Archie Andrews. I would keep a lot of that the same, where they are neighbors, and how, you know, she kind of has always had feelings for him, but then recently this new girl comes to town and she's like jealous, and, you know, I like that plot line. Veronica like actually had like the big house, because that's like one of her defining character traits, is she has like the big house, you know, but like technically all of the other characters in the show have a bigger house than Veronica, because Veronica's in a penthouse, but it's like a, from what I've seen, a fairly small penthouse. It's like an apartment. I don't know. I liked what they did at the beginning of the show, where they made her very anxious and nervous, and she did that thing where she would like get cuts because she was like clenching her fist so much. Now, you know, self-harm isn't good, and I wouldn't go that route because that was a little messed up. But I do like the idea that she is just like, she does have some version of anxiety, and it's very hard for her to treat it because she, you know, has always been the one girl in the group of guys, so she's always just taught to like figure it out, land on your feet, and she usually does, but she has all of this pressure on her. I'd like to see the idea of like she is applying to like some really important school, and she needs to keep on track with that, but she also wants to play baseball, and her mom's also breathing down her neck about like all of these applications, and she also really likes her neighbor, and she's kind of like figuring out her female sexual identity. I think that would be a good thing for her. I think it would be really good for her to be the kind of character who's just kind of has a lot of stress on her, and she's very much the mom friend. Like, she'll do anything for Archie. If Archie, like, she was studying for like a test at like the 3 o'clock in the morning, and Archie texted her like, hey, I'm sad, do you want to hang out? She would like immediately be there. Not necessarily because she's like in love with him and she like wants to smooch him. It's more like, Archie is my best friend and I'd do anything for him. In this murder house situation, she would be the one that would come in later with like a backpack full of things, and like she actually did the research, and she's like, Archie, wait, what are you doing? And she usually saves everyone's butts. Next we have Veronica. Now, Veronica is a character I never really liked, because it's like, I don't know, I was always like, well, I'm Team Betty, so like, but she's fine. But the version of her in Riverdale is particularly annoying. So I liked the idea that her dad did some kind of illegal business and he left, so she had to come back from New York to Riverdale. I like that concept. I like it a lot. But I wish that she moved in to their family's old, their old mansion that like no one's really lived in for like a couple decades, and like they're like, well, this is like the only land that your dad has that wasn't made from illegal business, so I guess you can live here for now. And she's like, great, thanks. I wouldn't give her a mom. I would, that sucks, I know, but the Veronica I know from the story, like from the comic books, she didn't have a mom, and I liked that about her. She seeked a lot of attention from her father in that aspect. And I feel like with the show, they'll like try to do that. They'll try to show how Veronica always seeks approval from her father, but it's like, it feels weird because I'm like, your mom is like right there and she loves ya. I don't understand why you don't just, whatever. So I would have made her sit in this house alone with Smithers. I think she's still an unapologetic girly girl. I think that just is always going to be one of her character traits. I think she would be like, they should have had it in the show where her style was a little bit more avant-garde or a little bit even more like risque. What I really would have liked to show just how weird and surreal like the town of Riverdale was, I would have loved there was like an opening scene and she's wearing something very modern and maybe even like a little risque, and she's like walking down the hallway and like Betty's like talking to like Kevin, talking to Kevin or something, and it's like, oh, have you heard like about the new girl? And it's like, oh, what new girl? And it's like, Veronica, and it's like, she's right over there, and we see her, yeah, and she's in like, I don't know, yeah, again, something very modern, very risque, and then everyone around her almost looks like they're in like close to like 50s clothes, and like she's here like completely like looks starkly different than everyone else. That would just really show what kind of character she is. And I feel like a lot of people just associate Veronica as the mean girl. She's not. Her intention in the story is bringing a different momentum to Riverdale. And people like Cheryl and Betty don't necessarily like that because they liked their system. They were happy with their system. But then she comes around and she completely messes up their whole system. And it pisses them off. They're like walking outside or something and Archie walks by, but he's like in football or something, so he's like not paying attention. And he's like, hey Ronnie, and then he walks off. And then Veronica's like, and Betty's like, and she's like, you know Archie? And she's like, yeah. And then she like says this super sweet story of how like the first day she got here, her car like was totaled or something, and he like gave her a ride home or something, and like, oh, just to make it even more painful, he like gave her a ride like back to her house or something, and he like awkwardly tripped when he was like getting out, and she thought he was so cute how like clumsy he was, and one of her luggage bags like accidentally chipped the paint from his truck, and she was like, oh, I'm so sorry, and he's like, don't worry about it, it's okay. And then Betty thinks in her head how like later that day at like 11 o'clock at night, he asked if she can come out and help him fix some red paint on the side of his truck, because his dad would kill him if he found out. And Betty did it without, like, questioning it. And in that moment, she's just, like, so mad about it, and it's just gaining this like pressure on her. I feel like the really tricky thing about bringing Betty and Veronica in the 21st century is like, how do you make them not anti-feminism feminist characters by making these two girls who are fighting over a very mediocre dude. And I think I found the solution. So at the beginning they would be fighting and it would be kind of catty and like but then after a while Veronica would start developing feelings for Betty. You see what I did there? Veronica's phone background was like a picture of like her and Betty, and like Betty's like, why am I your phone background? And she's like, nothing, don't leave my phone away. And she's like, and one day they're like having a fight and they're like face to face and they're like, but then they suddenly realize that like they're alone and then they kiss. Veronica in the murder house would be the damsel in distress, without a doubt in my mind. Next, we have Jughead Jones. Jughead Jones is a character who I think the most out of all of them has been completely warped from this show. Jughead Jones is asexual. Sorry, but he is. Jughead Jones is asexual. He doesn't like girls. Fortunately, they've made him, because they were like, oh, we got Cole Sprouse. They were like, oh, so let's make him like super, you know, dark and edgy and romantic. Even though he has totally lost his appeal to me, and I don't know if other people can like vouch for this, but I used to think he was so attractive, but like now I don't see it. I don't know where it went. Do you know where I think it went though? I think it went when he opened his mouth and he started acting and he started being his character, and I was like, that's like, you're not good. No one idolizes those couples who are like, will they or won't they anymore. People want things that are stable. Now, in the vein of Jughead Jones, to make a male character like that, who teenage girls will find desirable, they did the opposite of what they should do. They should make him totally unattainable to the female audience. A lot of girls can put themselves in Betty's shoes and be like, oh, well, like, Jughead's my boyfriend. But if they made him a super sarcastic, dumb, loudmouthed, annoying, rebellious, hungry guy, then so many girls would like fall at their feet for him. Now, again, I would keep him fairly similar to the comic books, but I would almost make him more crude, more of like a Richie Tozer kind of character. And I mean, I don't think they can swear, but like, still. I do like that he's rebellious in the show. I mean, the way they do it is weird, but I would love if like he, like when he found out that the drive-in was like closing down, he like held a school-wide like protest and like people were like throwing paint or like, I don't know, just like crazy wild stuff. I'd love to see him like kind of emo, a little angsty, I'm not gonna lie. Ripped jeans, band shirts, still that stupid hat, but like a little emoed out, you know? And I think that would be like super appealing to the audience because that's such a charming character. When I think about Jughead Jones in the show, I have no discernible character trait for him besides like sad. I don't even care. Like, I kind of also like the idea that his parents are in a biker gang, or that his father is in a biker gang. I think that's cool. But the way they should have done it was, I would have made it where Jughead has known about the serpents forever. Like, he always knew about them. And he's almost like, they're little kid, you know? Like, he'd go to the bar with his dad when he was a little kid, and they'd be like, oh, and then like the criminals would take turns like holding a little baby and he'd be like, But they were also like super soft guys that would like show him like the best movies and like Rocky and the Goonies and stuff. And he like grew up eating burgers at the bar where his father and where his father was at, you know? The murder house situation, Jughead Jones would be the one that would come in at the last minute and be like, ah, and then like try to take something down, but probably not be great at it. Betty would probably, Veronica and Betty would probably help him. And I also just wanted to talk a little bit about Cheryl and Kevin. Why do I always forget his name? Kevin, he's okay. Like, they should just not make him the like gay best friend stereotype. I would kind of like to see him a little bit more anti-establishment. Now I know that's a little controversial because he ends up becoming a military man in the comic books, but I would kind of like to see him on heists with Jughead. Also, give Kevin a boyfriend and like a sane, normal guy. Actually, I kind of liked that his boyfriend was the that guy in the serpent. I just wish he didn't like help with the murder, you know. Next, Cheryl. Sorry, this is the final one. I swear, I'm gonna be done soon. Cheryl is like actually one of the characters I really liked until they made her like a creepy predator to Josie. I liked that she was a little deranged because she's kind of deranged in the comic books. I would love to see again like kind of how they had the show at the beginning where her and Veronica were like kind of butting heads because they're both these like big powerhouses. But then she kind of falls because she's like, my brother's dead and I'm real sad. And they could still make her gay. Like, that's not the thing I have a problem with. Like, but I think it should be more of like a, oh, okay, that's fine. Like, no one like really cares, you know? And like, maybe the only conflict her parents could give her is because her parents are super rigid, are supposed to be very rigid and scary. Maybe they can less be like, that's wrong, and then like try to kill her. They could just be like, you need to carry down the lineage, and the only way to do that is like with reproduction. And she's like, oh, the murder / what I would make happen. I don't want to give too much away, but if I were to do it, I would have, again, Jason be the one that died. I would have, yeah, I would have had it Sweetwater River. I think that's a decent place to do it. Yeah. I would have had where Cheryl and him were having a picnic or something, and they were playing like sweet 50s bops, and they were like out in the forest and like they were dancing and having fun. We have an image like we have like a medium shot of them dancing, and it's like really cute, and there's Swifties music and like blah 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 on their little picnic blanket, and the camera will go down and it's the gingham of the picnic blanket, and we hear a gunshot, and then the music, oh, and then we see like blood splatter go onto the part of the gingham that the camera sees, and we hear like obviously scream, and then the radio turned off. Something like that. Adult characters would be the sheriff, because the sheriff is trying to solve this mystery, but it's really difficult and it's very stressful because like Cheryl, like she says that she that he had like a red hood on, or like some kind of thing where she wasn't able to see his face, and he ran away right away, and she just like started crying. I don't know. It's very difficult, and so the gang gets established, and this is also while Veronica is kind of coming into town, and there's a lot of tension. But Archie hears about this, and he's like, like I wonder what that's about. So he talks about it with like Betty, and Betty's like, this sounds really similar to something that happened in this town in the 50s. And they research more, and then Jughead gets behind it, and then Veronica's kind of in it because Archie's in it, and Betty's like, oh, we can have her here, I guess. And then they all are starting to solve the case, and they're going with evidence, and he's like, no, you kids can't solve this mystery. But then they end up solving the mystery. Or it should be Moose. Midge. Midge made Moose do it. I could see that. A little Bonnie and Clyde situation. Why I think this show would be more profitable. Well, not profitable, because they're getting a lot of money of this show. But why I think this show would work better is because, first of all, we have a very clear aesthetic. And I am a person that I'm very anal about aesthetics. Like, if something has to have a good aesthetic, or I will not be interested in it. Things can be terrible, but if they have a good aesthetic, I will be interested. So that's what I mean by things being very 50s, and I think they should only play 50s music. Because that would add a really good vibe to everything. I think they should recast all of their actors because they're all bad. I would make Betty not always have her hair in a stupid ponytail and wearing that stupid collared shirt. Jughead should just eat like so much. He should live at Pops because it's like, because there could also be some sad moments where it's like his dad would come home drunk from like a long night while he's like going to school in the morning, and he's like, so what's for dinner? And his dad's like, and he's like, I'll go to Pops, and he's like, and it's like, so it's like he kind of lives there, and the guy who runs it is kind of like a father figure to him, you know? I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you want me to remake any of your favorite shows, leave me comments down below. Fight me in the comments. That's what I meant to say. Fight me in the comments down below. Leave me a like, subscribe if you want to. The world's your oyster. I need to go to the bathroom.